Hello and welcome to week 3 of the Gaol Project. We've got some interesting developments to convey this week insofar as the project is taking physical shape. If you don't know the project by now, what we have 12 custom made scenes which I've written, which are going to be fed into a clock interface. The clock hands control each of the 12 different scenes so that when one person goes to the start of each hour, they trigger a different scene. This will be rear projected onto the back of the clock face. And the whole effect is quite an interesting one. Now, story largely set at this point, I do have a secondary responsibility that's been added to mine, and that's aesthetic. Now, one of the things about aesthetic is a lot of people wouldn't know what it was from like face value, and what I boil it down to personally is, would this piece look out of place in the jail, in a real museum? Working with this in mind, I've been working very, very close with Robin over the last couple of weeks to make sure that the two sides of the project come together as one very well. To physically prepare our interface, I've got two specially cut Perspex discs, each 0.3 centimeters thick and 43 centimeters in diameter. That's exactly the same size as our clock face. Sandwiched in between these is a layer of material that's thin enough for light to largely pass through it. In this case, we're using greaseproof paper because although we checked a couple of different types of materials, greaseproof paper actually turned out to be the best, and to give us the best look and feel that we wanted. Part of the testing for this interface was actually to set up the Six Nations on my own TV in my own home with the projector. Now that might seem a little bit silly to some, but it actually did help us an awful lot in the project. As you can see from this picture, it cuts off little things at the edge. A regular television picture, well, these days is 16:9. It's going to be a rectangular shape. Many of the TV broadcasts that you would have seen up to about 10 years ago would have been 4:3, which is a square shape. This is actually showing things in a round shape, which is going to cut off certain sections of the piece. As you can see here from the second picture, in the Scotland-Wales game, I actually had to move the picture all the way to the left to have both the score and the players in picture. Now that's going to cut off an awful lot of what's being seen in the show. And yes, that's going to be a very big thing for us to think about when we're actually filming, and more about that later on. We set up with the projector in the college on Wednesday a very kind of crude test to show exactly what we wanted to do and to show our lecturers as well where we were on the project. As you can see here, this is Google Earth. Yes, Google Earth was actually one of our testing grounds because it's got a lot of pictures, it's got a lot of movement, it's got a lot of things going on at the same time. We didn't have video to put into the interface then, that was the finished video, so we didn't want that to hold us back. We wanted to have really top quality video to show. So with Google Earth, a lot of moving around was done, and you could see a lot of the pictures come out to be quite nice and quite bright. That's one thing that we really wanted to have. Bright pictures, very rich in saturation, and the contrast needs to be quite high as well, because a little bit of a washed out look is what we're looking for, but not too much of a washed out look. We're not looking for just a white image here. Which brings me neatly on to the interface. Now in this picture you're going to see a rotary encoder and a potentiometer. The potentiometer has been something we've been using for quite some time, but it's been restrictive. It brings us 330 degrees around, but it doesn't give the full breadth of action for the entire day. So we've actually replaced it with a rotary encoder this week, which goes around and around in 360 degrees. Exactly what we're looking for. So, as I say, Robin's been mostly looking at this one, so I won't go too much into detail on that, but it does actually show, as we go through the videos, the full length and breadth of the day, so we can switch from one video to another all the way around all day long. Which brings me finally onto video. As you can see, Brian and Colm in this picture here are hard at work as Rory and Guard 2. They're going to be shooting scenes together for a couple of days, and then Rory will move on to shooting with Guard 1 and the others. Caroline has been delivering these fast and furious, so they're going to be coming into the interface really soon. As you can see from the test footage that we have from our prototypes, one of the problems with it was that with the vignette effect, people would go too far to the left or too far to the right, or sometimes their eye line would dip below the top of the clock level. That's obviously unacceptable, so we're going to make sure that all the scenes are filmed far enough back and within this safe area of the middle, in this square area. So that's what we're doing this week, and next week I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about the story and how that came together.